Okay, so we're back. So chapter 21, verse 23. Vahidvar Hashem Eli lemor, and the word of God came to me, saying, V'ata ben adam, sim lecha shnayim dirachim, lavo cherev melech Bavel, me'eretz echad, yitz'u shnehem. So God says to Yechezkel, son of man, make two paths, right? And through one of these paths, the king of Bavel is going to come. They're going to ultimately be emanating from the same place, i.e. Bavel, right? But you're going to make these two different paths for exactly how they're going to get there. And it seems to be what's being referenced here is the order in which the king of Bavel is going to be coming to Jerusalem, either directly to Jerusalem or via kind of a little bit of a detour, which we're going to see at the end of the chapter, that they seem to go to another kingdom first before coming to Jerusalem. But either way, basically the same reality. V'yad barei berosh derech ir barei, right? And basically just be prepared. It's going to be coming either way. You look at it. Derech tasim lavo cherev et rabat bnei Amon v'et Yehuda b'Yerushalayim b'tzura, right? So make one path to go for the sword to go to Rabbah, right, and the capital of the city, the children of Ammon, and one to Yehuda, the city of Yerushalayim, which is right. Has its protections, right? So those are the two options these two roads are going to take. We'll see at the end of the chapter, right, the little bit of a respite that where in fact they seem to go to Ammon first, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's any saving grace at the end of this road, right? The road ultimately leads to Yerushalayim. Ki amad melech Bavel el im haderech berosh shnei hadrachim, because the king of Bavel stands at the head of this path with two different paths to go. Liksam kasem kilkal bachitzim she'al b'atrafim v'ra'a b'kaved. So apparently the king of Babylon was pretty superstitious, and he did three different things to divine the future. The first was he rattled his arrows. So the way this worked, Dr. Tovik Anzel goes into detail with all three of these, which is pretty cool. So the rattling of the arrows is that they would put multiple answers to questions on different arrows in a quiver, and then they'd basically shake it like a grogger, and whichever one would fall out, that would be the answer to their question. So do we go down this path or this path, left or right? Shake it up. It's like an 8-ball, right? Shake it up, and up to the right came out. Okay, we go to the right, and then they would do it maybe multiple times. She's not exactly sure why that was compelling, but that was the way that they would divine using the arrows. Second one was Sha'al bit batrafim, so that's more standard. They would ask their idols. They would basically do different rituals or whatnot in front of their trafim, in front of their divining idol tools, and that would somehow correspond to them also finding out the future. We have references to this type of stuff with Shaul and Shmuel or whatnot, right? And in this Parsha, Ovin Yedoni, right? These are the different types of witchcraft or things that they would use to talk to the dead or whatnot, to divine the future. So this is just another form of that with Trafim. And the last is really interesting, is they would look at the kaved. They would shecht an animal, and then they would have a priest who is trained in understanding how to read the liver of that particular animal. So they would look at certain lines, different shapes, how healthy it was, how not healthy it was, and we actually have found archaeological evidence of tin plates with lots of different kind of analyses of different livers, and it has been ascribed to this practice of teaching priests how to divine things from the differences in different livers, which is fascinating. So we got all three here, are the different things that the king of Bavel used to try to figure out, do I go down this path, do I go down that path, and how do I choose my next strategic move? So moving forward, Bimino haya hakesem Yerushalayim lasum karim liftoach peh beretzach laharim kol bichiro lasum karim al she'arim lishpoch solala livnot dayik. So this pasuk is actually pretty complicated. The Rishonim have a lot of debates about the word karim. Karim. What is the art scroll here translated as? Oh, interesting. Okay, so I like this translation, but this is the minority translation. So the majority translation, Rashi and many others, quote the word karim to mean shlich. Sorry, not shlichim, but mishumarim. Right. So basically guards. That the way that they read this verse is basically the laying down of the siege that's going to come. So. Right, in his right hand he has this, right, this kesem, this divination thing, Yerushalayim lasum karim, to place guards liftoach peh at the opening of each mouth, meaning at each entryway, artery in and out of the city, beretzech, right, in order to, right, the goal is for death and destruction, for murder, larim kol bitrua, right, to raise a sound of, right, of trumpets, basically, assume karim al sharim, to place these guards on the various sharim, lishpoch solala livnot dayek, and to pour a basically they would pour dirt to make ramps to be able to climb up the side of the walls to be able to not only lay a siege, but eventually to enter the city, to build a siege tower. So you have, right, that was the way that most of the Rishonim understand that, but the Radak quotes the possibility that maybe it's referring to actually battering rams, which, from the language of the Pasuk, I thought sounded a little bit better, because Liftoach Peh doesn't seem to be about placing people. It sounds to be about making openings. So liftoach peh is to open a mouth, so to speak, to create an opening in and around, right, the Yerushalayim, which is bitzura, we saw earlier, right? It has its protection, it has its wall, but the battering ram was thematically, I think it makes more sense. I think the reason the other Rishonim go with siege is because that's what actually happens first. So I think they're reading history into the psukim a little bit, and right, trying to justify the word karim in fact means guards. But my 2 cents. Vayalahem kiksam shav ve'enehem shivuei shavuot lahem v'maskir avon lehi tapes. So. It was for them a meaningless divination in their eyes, even though they had cast 7 times 7 divinations, and all pointed to them, and this recalled their iniquity, that they might be captured. So I was trying to find what was the big deal about the 7 and 7, right? It's like this, they did 7 different divinations, we only saw 3. Apparently they repeated them a certain amount of times, but they all seemed to repeat, and again, the Rishonim are not clear here exactly what this first line of this means. I was trying hard to figure out what is the, right, is this the prophet saying, right, they're nothingness? Because, like, we're talking about different forms of witchcraft in the context of Avodah Zarah, so he's kind of adding that phrase, these things are worthless. Is he saying that they themselves didn't really listen to them? Because we're going to see they first go to the people of Ammon. Right, so is it that even though everything was pointing to Yerushalayim, they still first go to Ammon before they go to Yerushalayim? Is that what's happening? It was very hard for me to figure out exactly what's going on in this verse. Also, in terms of what exactly it was like shav b'einehem. It was worthless in their eyes. So. So here he even says, so I didn't see this Rashi apparently, but here he says there's actually in the eyes, or maybe I misunderstood the Rashi, but he says that it was nothing, it was like shav in their eyes, talking about the Jews, right? that Vaya lahem kiksam shav be'enehem. So even though the divination kept on pointing towards Jerusalem, it made no difference to the Jews. Still a hard read. But
first, why are we being told all this about the divinations?
So I think that to some extent, I think we're being brought in a little bit into. I mean, the ultimate goal with all these things is always to rip into the Jewish people for not reforming their ways after the amount of times that Yechezkel has said, guys, and everybody else, not just Yechezkel, all the prophets have been telling, right, both the Jews in exile and the Jews in Jerusalem, right, they're not getting it. They haven't been able to get on the right path for quite some time. And Yechezkel's message to the people in Galut is that, right, you guys are the future. That's always the underlying message of everything that Yechezkel is doing. Here, right, it's always hard with Yechezkel to figure out because sometimes it seems like he's addressing the people in Jerusalem, but he's in Bavel. So that's always like an overlaying challenge to try and figure out what exactly is his goal.
Are they trying to say? Is he trying to say that God caused them to believe that their gods told them to go to Jerusalem? In other words, that the fact that they were going to Jerusalem was not a mistake, and it wasn't just by chance. It wasn't because they did their own magic, but I caused their magic to come out this way. So you wouldn't say, oh, you know what, if he had turned right instead of turned left, we would have been okay. This didn't come from God. But
right.
I even got involved in their own magic,
right,
to push them.
That's interesting.
To
I hadn't thought of that.
Way.
Right, that's interesting.
Right. Otherwise, it's like saying that their magic is good. Otherwise,
but the language of the pasuk is that even though they had these things, right, v'halahem kiksam, right, shav ve'enehem, right. The simple reading of that is that it was still worthless in their eyes, meaning somehow. So meaning that's why this Rashi, which I must have missed, right, seems to say that it's the eyes of the Jews because it's very challenging that if they're doing all these things, then you'd think that they believe in these things. Right, but somehow they're still like shav be'enehem. So here, Yechezkel is saying that to the Jews, despite the amount of evidence that something bad is about to happen, they're still not getting it. But yeah, I like your point. I think it's interesting to read. Right, this is saying that God is even these things that are normally worthless. Right, God's making sure to manipulate them so that right, that God's involved in the whole process. It's not just random that when the Babylonians come.
Right.
Yeah, certainly can be. Fine. Lachain ko amar Adonai Elohim ya'an hazkartem avoneichem behigalos pisheichem lehiraos chatoseichem bechol aliloseichem ya'an Hizachartem zacharchem bakaf titapesu. So basically, right, all of your sins are now going to come to bear because of all the things you've done wrong, and now he rips into the leadership that have led them down this path. Vatach alal rasha nesi Yisrael asher ba yomo ve'es avon kates. Right, so. You defile the wicked one, the prince of Israel, which is referring to Tzidkiyahu, whose day has come at the time of the final iniquity. Ko amar Adonai Elohim hasir hamitznefet v'arim ha'atara. So remove the fancy hat, remove the crown, Zos lo zos hashafala higbeya. So the Rishonim say that's referring to Gedalia, right? The lower ones we will raise up, v'hagavoa hishpil, and the higher ones we will lower down, meaning the Malchut of Yehuda and Tzidkiyahu and the line of David is going to be lowered at this point. Ava asimena, gamzos lo haya adbo asher lo hamishpat unisativ. Right, so desolate, desolate, desolate. I will make this place. Right, which is a pretty intense amount of desolates. If you missed it the first time and the second time, so another desolate. And basically, judgment is coming, and it's going to be, right, basically what we've been saying the whole time, but not something that you've seen. V'ata ben adam hinaveh v'amarta kol amar Adonai Elohim el b'nei Amon ve'el cherpasam v'amarta cherev ptucha la tevach miruta la hachil lema'an barak. So this word barak, I don't know what it means, but flash doesn't mean lightning, thunder, sparkles. I saw one translation, but basically this is kind of like it's almost like a little bit of a breath that we get in this context, because it sounds like this is all imminent, all coming directly to Jerusalem, and then all of a sudden, right, God tells Yechezkel to now prophesy towards the people of Ammon, right, that basically the sword is coming their way. But right, say an open sword is burnished for slaughter, to consume in order to flash. So fine. Bachazos lach shav biksam lach kazav laseis osach el tzavrei chalalei rishaim asher bam yomam be'es avon kates. While worthless prophecies are seen for you, while falsehood is divined for you, to place you with the next of the slain wicked ones, whose day has come at the time of the final iniquity. So again, right, this, right, the shav, right, these, to me it sounds like, right, and this is what I was saying earlier, one of the things that I thought maybe you could read it as is it's almost like Yechezkel's. People have watched Shtisel here? Yes? No Shtisel? The show? Okay. So it's kind of like, it's so for those who watched it, it's like when the uncle says Rishayim Harurim, like mid-sentence, right? Those evil ones, right? Every mid-sentence. So it's kind of like, the way I was reading this was, right, that every time he quotes these divinations, he kind of like has to like those divinations, right? That's kind of like the way that he might be, right, adding that in, as opposed to it being, because it seems to be referring to, right, these non-Jews who are doing them, but that doesn't really make sense, because then why are they doing them? Which is why Rashi had to go the way he went, which is what the Jews, in fact, were the ones who are calling them, right, shav, or calling them worthless. Anyways, it's still not super clear to me exactly what's going on there, but the Ammonites are now going to be the focus of this prepared sword. Bachazos lach shav. Sorry, I just did that. Pasuk lamed hey. Hashav el tara b'makom asher nivreis be'eretz mechorosayich eshpot osach. So, after the sword has been returned to its scabbard in the place where you originated in your native land, I will punish you. Right? So basically, this is like I said, it's ironic, but it's kind of like you have a little bit more time, because right in the beginning of the chapter, which we did last week, right, it's all about this brandishing of a sword, this creating of a sword. God creates a handle for the sword; it becomes a sword, and He hands it to the slayer. So it all sounds like this is about to go down the pike. But then there's these two paths, and in the end, right, the path that's chosen is the path of Ammon, and then the sword is returned to the scabbard, it's returned to its holder for a little bit longer, even though it's still on its way, right? Both paths eventually led to Jerusalem. That was the idea. But, right, so you have kind of this short respite, but it's only as short as it is.
So Ammon is destroyed at this time too.
Yeah.
So
Meaning Bavel was not satisfied with just Jerusalem. They were in a expanding mode spirit, and they were going to expand their borders in whichever direction they could.
And Ammon is in the way, right? Isn't Ammon between Bavel? Ammon's between Bavel and Yechezkel.
I don't think so. So look at a map.
The only reason I'm thinking is because in the Chumash, they go around this way and come in, and they go through Ammon and Moab. They go through Ammon.
Right, but Bavel is
and Bavel
north.
is north, right? But you swing down the valley.
Right, but I think it's
No.
I think they have to swing around to get to Ammon first. I think. I don't know if we have a good map here. We need to see it. Right, I'm pretty sure Bavel is northwest.
Bavel?
Or northeast.
Babylonian, wasn't it? Northeast Babylonian. They would swim around the Fertile Crescent, right? Because it's desert going southward.
Yeah, so Ammon is here. So if you look on page 2044. So Ammon is southeast of Israel.
And Jerusalem.
Yerushalayim is further west, but pretty much on par.
Right, so about the same.
Yeah, so you could have. Honestly, you could have gone either way. When you think about it, because they're coming from here, so they're coming down. So they could either come straight here and then swing back around to Ammon, or they
on the way back.
Yeah, or they swing straight down to Ammon and then they cross the Jordan.
Right. So, and then what about Moab? Are they still?
So I think, I don't remember, but there's a whole bunch of nations who we're going to get to who Yechezkel prophesies towards. Egypt is always another important player in this because they're always stronger than the other nations in this area. Always put up a good fight. But we'll get there. Fine. So back to Pasuk Lamed Vav. V'shafachti alayich zami ba'ish evrati afiach alayich unisatich biyad anashim bu'arim charashei mashchis. So I will put out my fury upon you. I will fan the fire of my fury against you. I will place you in the hand of brutish men, artisans of destruction. So again, nothing surprising. All things that have been said, and Bavel is becoming that person more and more clearly. La'ish tihiyah, le'ochla damech yiyah besoch ha'aretz, lo sizacheri ki ani Hashem dibarti. So through fire you will be consumed, your blood will be swallowed in the midst of the land, you will not be remembered, for I, Hashem, have spoken. Right? And that's a pretty harsh end, but all coming with, to some extent, almost like a little bit of a right, the silver lining is that they have a little bit more time, because Ammon takes the first brunt of the sword. But it's about as imminent as you're going to get. And I keep on saying that because it keeps on becoming more and more imminent. And I think that's Yechezkel's point, right? It's that you guys think it's never going to happen. It's really going to happen, but then he has to keep on saying it's really going to happen because it hasn't happened yet.
But it almost feels like he moves the history forward a little bit by talking about the divinations, for example. So before it was this abstract thing. Now, like, okay, they made their own prophecies. They're on their way. You know, it's like
No, for sure.
The story is slowly rolling out.
Yeah.
In terms of reality.
Yeah, for sure. And the things are becoming more. I'm saying the fact that he knows that there's a possibility of either going to Ammon and then Jerusalem, or Jerusalem then Ammon, like that in and of itself is a lot more detail than we got to the just big destruction story, where we don't really get necessarily a real sense of what the army is planning on doing. So for sure, the story is certainly moving in a more concrete fashion, helping us fill in some of the pieces.
Why is Ammon being punished? Just because they're there?
Meaning from Bavel's perspective? or from, meaning Babel is just deposing all the kings who either rebelled and or are not subservient, right? And basically putting in a person who will be subservient to the crown of Babel.
Okay.
They're just spreading their power.
They're not.
Because they're there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not right. They're not being specifically punished for any extra sins that they.
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of them having had a rebellion like Tzidkiyahu. Tzidkiyahu himself, really, in theory, you wouldn't have thought would have. Meaning, he was appointed by Babel, so it's only because he rebels that they come back. Otherwise, they were a vassal state, so they pay their taxes, they do what they need to do, and they live in peace as a subject of the crown of Babel.
I guess my question more was: are they being punished because of something they did to Jewish people on Mount?
Oh, that is not clear
It's not.
from here.
Right.
It just sounds like it doesn't sound like they're good people, right? Yechezkel does call them evil.
Right. I mean, there's things going back to the times of the Shoftim and Shaul and that we got.
Certainly.
But it's hundreds and hundreds of years before.
Yeah, the main focus is just I would say the appetite of Nebuchadnezzar and Babel.
Uh-huh. They don't have any redeeming qualities that's going to save them, though. It
No.
doesn't seem like.
No. Yeah. So we'll stop here and we'll pick up with chapter 22, which, as you can see in your little things, right, it's the Haftorah that we never read. The Sephardim read it, but we never read it because even though normally you're supposed to read the Haftorah of the second parsha, so you normally read the Haftorah of Kedoshim if Acharimot and Kedoshim are together. That Acharimot and Kedoshim is the one exception. You still read the Haftorah for Acharimot. And when, this year happened, Acharimot and Kedoshim are separated, and Acharimot gets the special Haftorah for Macharas HaChodesh, for Rosh Chodesh, so then the next week on Kedoshim, we still read Acharimot. So we basically never read this Haftorah, except for the 1 year where it's a leap year, so they're separated, and it's not Rosh Chodesh, so we actually said the Acharimot Haftorah already, and then we'll say the Kedoshim Haftorah, which is very uncommon. But
It's quite the study session to figure out what we're supposed to be reading.
oh my gosh, yeah. So we're gonna do it anyways, though, next week.
So you mean
the Haftorah that we never do.
in here?
Yeah.